Orthodoxy. I wondered what was the one main thing that you fell in love with Orthodoxy and made you convert?
It wasn't what you think.
I want to ask him the same question. And Father Philip.
You want three of us to answer? Okay.
Trinity. Answer.
Go ahead, you go first.
No, you go first.
Okay, mine is real easy. To make a long story, as you can tell, short, I went to college in a Roman Catholic school. I was going to become a priest and a monk and all the rest of it. It was a big Benedictine school. And some things happened. I was starting to question the teaching of the Roman Catholic Church. I was born and raised Roman Catholic. I was questioning some of the morality that was going on around me. I'll just leave it there for now. And then third, I started seeing some wrong, since some things can be wrong, and I had been raised in this church, and I said, wow, if these things are wrong, what else is wrong? So then I said, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to date a woman. Because, I was going to be celibate priest and no wife and all the rest of it. Yeah, Roman Catholic, I said, I'm going to date a woman. I'll show them. So I said, I went and found a woman. And she turned into my wife. So she's a beautiful woman. And I saw her and I said, well, whatever. But the point, I'll tell you, we can marry tonight when we have the young adult gathering, they like to hear those details. But really, ultimately what happened, 3 months we went, and finally I told her, after we had both, developed some love, mutual love, I said, oh, by the way, I'm thinking about being a priest. It almost destroyed her, because she was Roman Catholic too. And she said, if it was another woman, I could just slug you and go walk away. But it's God, and she did. So we had all this for 3 years, up and down. And she's a saint, the way she survived it. But then, to make a really long story short, one time we had fallen away from the church. We were living in Miami, Florida. And we were depressed, and we weren't going to church. We were making a lot of money, working at a kosher Jewish hotel. Talking about good preparation for the priesthood. And then she went to midnight mass at Christmas time, and I got sick, thank God. I didn't have to go because I was finished with the Roman Catholic Church. And then she came home, and she was very upset with me. She said, I don't care what we do, but we have to find a common spiritual life, because we were both spiritual people. That's what attracted us to each other. But at the same time, I said, okay, I agree with you here. She said, there's a big hole in the middle of our marriage. We're doing all this, making a lot of money, and who cares? I said, the only condition I have is it cannot be the Roman Catholic Church anymore. So my wife's scientific minded. So she said, okay, we're going to find a new church. And I said, okay, where? How do we do that? And she said, I know, we're going to go to the library. I said, we're going to go to the library to find another church? I said, okay, dear. Let's go to the library and find it. So she said, we went to the library, and then she said, I don't want to see anybody's propaganda. I'm not reading any book that comes out of any church. We're going to read the Encyclopedia of Religions. Oh yeah, how exciting. So we went through the Encyclopedia of Religions. So we're going looking at all the religions, Buddhism, and I said, oh, keep going. I know it has to be Christ. I know that much. So we get past all the paganism, And then we get to the Protestant churches, and we're looking maybe a little bit longer. I said, there's nothing there. I said, we'll eat that up in 10 minutes. There's nothing there, because we knew that we were sacramental people. Like everything I'm talking about here, the sacramental the mysteries, the experiential, liturgical life, and all of that. I said, so it can't be the Protestant churches, at least not what I was seeing there. And then we ran into the Orthodox Church in the pages of the Encyclopedia of Religion in the South Miami Library, thanks to my wife.
Wow.
Your turn. This is fun. Now I get to sit down.
Next.
there's a really long version, which is one you really understand what I went through. I'm a fourth generation clergy. My great-grandfather was a missionary, a Lutheran missionary in India, and my great-grandmother went out by ship in the late 1800s and met him, and helped keep him and one of his buddies, who was also a missionary, kept ministering them back to health because of the malaria they went through. My grandfather was born in India. I was born, and he became a lay ministry eventually in Western Canada to the Lutherans. And I was born in my dad's last year of seminary. I'm 64, and he's been a Lutheran pastor, now retired, for 64 years, still alive. So I grew up in a pastor's family and grew up all across Western Canada, British Columbia, Alberta, Saskatchewan, and Ontario. And was his organist in my high school years. And then I was organist at the Lutheran Seminary while I was studying, not at the seminary, but regular arts program. I want to tell you one thing about clergy's children, is they're just as much sinners as any other kids that are out there. The problem with clergy children is they either work really hard at looking good so that they don't shame their parents' ministry, or they really act up. And I behaved well externally, and I knew I was a sinner just like everybody else. In my first 3 years of university, I was about as bad of as unholy as you can imagine, though still being involved in church activities. And finally went off and joined a Christian theater company out of Los Angeles, traveling around Western Canada. It was going into churches and preaching the gospel through different things, such as the Charlie Brown characters with different names, with permission from Tanner, the author of Charlie Brown. Spent 3 months in an Episcopal monastery, and in the process of that decided I was going back to Canada to become a Lutheran pastor. But one of the things, and I fled.
It's okay.
I attempted to flee from my sinful past by going into this stuff, and the time in the acting thing, you know, pretty focused. In the monastery, pretty focused. Came back, getting ready to finish up my last year of university to go to seminary, and just about starting to fall back into my sinful behaviors of first, second, and third year of university. And about then met my future wife. But also encountered the charismatic movement, okay, which suddenly revealed an aspect of theology that wasn't in the Lutheran Church. Okay, and in the Lutheran Church, and this is a prayer practice, the Lutherans were accustomed to praying to the Father in the name of Jesus for Jesus' sake. You got a benediction at the end from the pastor, but throughout the whole rest of the service, no mention of the Spirit. And what my challenge had been is I'd grown up realizing, understanding, at least intellectually, that I had been set free from the penalty of sin. But I knew that I had absolutely no victory, or no even hope of being set free from the power of sin, which the charismatic movement opened up. Okay? And the Orthodox church that I ended up in, because my wife was going to that church, had gone through the charismatic movement. And the priest of that parish had been kicked out of the Ukrainian Orthodox Church of Canada because he was encouraging Bible study, hearing the gospel and the sermon in English, and things of that nature. And so they had encountered the charismatic movement, and suddenly they were going through confusion. You know, something was wrong with their experience in the Orthodox Church. And so we spent a lot of time in that church, being Orthodox, but checking out all of the other Christian experiences, and discovering that none of them had all the accuracy. And then the Evangelical Orthodox Church came along and joined the Orthodox Church as a result of my working in a print shop where they kept coming in to print. And so I said, hi, I belong to this Orthodox Church. And so they started to hang out with us, And they're bringing in their bishops, who eventually became archpriests. And they're bringing them in and explaining to their people, and we come along and they were saying, look, this is the value of Orthodoxy. And so bit by bit, we were able to help sort out, okay, what was accurate in, and I'm not trying to diss the Ukrainian Orthodox Church, understand that, okay? But there were things that were not in the belief of the church, but in where the people's focus was in, that was wrong, right? Like our nationalism, fine, I don't care where we come from. You know, I'm Swedish on my dad's side. I'm British and Norwegian on my mom's side.
God help you.
You know, I know. My wife is half Czechoslovakian and half Ukrainian. So you know, my kids are Heinz 57, and then they've helped complicate that more since they got married, right? And all of those nationalnesses are okay, and they're great. I love pierogies. I love borscht. I love all this stuff, you know, and I love the relationship to them. But it's got to always be the Lord first, and wherever you came from or wherever you are is second, right? Because He's the Lord of over all the lords, all the kings, etc. So we finally got that sort of settled out in the Ukrainian, in the Orthodox Church, and we were originally in the Ukrainian Orthodox Church of America, which was bringing non-canonical Ukrainian Orthodox Church of Canada people into canonical order under the Patriarch of Constantinople. And our poor bishop, our poor priest, every month was getting a phone call from the bishop saying, "What's this? I heard from someone in Florida that you're doing blah, blah, blah." Or here out in California or in Quebec. And Father Horton would say, "Oh, well, blah, blah," and he'd explain. And the bishop would always hang up and say, he'd say to him, "Oh, well, I don't have any troubles with that. Carry on." And he'd hang up. And then in 1986, he phoned up Father Horst and said, "Father Horst, I'm very old. I'm very tired. And I can't keep defending you anymore. I'm releasing you in your parish. Go find another jurisdiction." And we had to figure out where we were going. And we finally ended up in the Ukraine, in the Archdiocese of Canada, OCA. But that said, and all of that time, I was, and my wife were lay people. When my wife was 19 years old, she became the music director for our church. So she's going on 40 years as music leader for the church, and she's learned an awful lot, and she's got great skills. She helped me in our conversations before we got married. We were a year and a half, we hung out together before we got married, and I became Orthodox about the same time. I had to make a decision that if I was going to become Orthodox, I had to make it, and be serious about the Lord, period. I had to decide that separate from marrying this woman. Right? I wasn't going to go into the church because of a woman. Not because that's not a good thing, but that had to be more important. And I made that decision, right? And I made the decision for her. And everything you said about marriage, and you're laying down, I mean, the first 2 years of our life was a big exercise in starting to learn how to lay our lives down for each other. Father Horst had to get real accustomed to somebody knocking on his door at 2 o'clock in the morning saying, "Father Horst, I think the marriage is over." And sometimes it was my wife and sometimes it was me. Because we were very strong personalities, very different. You know, my big fat Greek wedding? Barbara came from that kind of a family. We would go for family reunions there, 80 people, and that's just brothers and sisters and their kids. Right? And then on my side, one brother, one sister, and me, right? And neither of them were ever involved in any of this kind of stuff. But in the Orthodox faith, I finally found that not only is there victory over the power, or over the penalty of sin, but there is power because the Orthodox Church is the only place I found it. And this includes the Roman Catholic Church. The Roman Catholic Church spends too much time because its children all basically stand on the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit sort of off there to the side, which is why the Catholics went through a huge experience with the charismatic movement, because they needed to get that connection again. The Orthodox, to a lesser degree, the same thing, but the Holy Spirit is what gives you the victory over sin. And you have to cooperate with Him, as well as accept that what God's revealing through His Word is true, and letting what the Word is declaring and presenting to you is functional if you let the Holy Spirit help you to do it. And the sense of ortho, right, correct, accurate, effective, doxy, worship, glory, is the only thing that makes it possible. And I put off, from the time I met my wife in 1976 until 1990, any decision about going into ministry, because I knew I didn't know sweet tweet about God. And I had to come to understand that through learning what it meant to be a man, to being a husband, and learning to lay my life down for my wife and for my children, and to serve God and to serve my people, till finally the bishop, through somebody else, approached me and said, "Would you please get ordained as a deacon?" And I said yes. And then I spent 10 years trying to help helping a priest and his wife who went through much sickness and suffering to care for a church. And then the bishop said to me, "I need you to be a priest too." So here I am. And I resisted ordination to the priesthood all that time because I'm not living, right? And the thing you guys all need to know is the Lord loves you all. And anyway, that's how I ended up there. Sorry, that was longer than it should have. But literally, of all the Christian communities, we didn't do the encyclopedia approach. We connected with them all, talked with them all, experienced them all, got to know them. We actually, in fact, our church in Saskatoon helped to shut down 3 cults. And some of the people ended up in our church, in the other Orthodox church, and some went to other churches as well. But they came to us and to a couple of other churches to help them get out of huge messes that they've gotten themselves into with their crazy heterodoxy. So great, right? And you need to be a light that way. You guys have to make sure you're being ortho, right worshiping, right glorifying, right praising. That's what it's all about. Anything else, you're going to, well, we're in, sorry, one last thing. We moved into a new church recently, right? We're renting with hopes to purchase an Anglican church. And I've gotten to know the Anglican bishop there. We've had some wonderful talks. He should be Orthodox. He's well on his way there. But one of the things they have told us is that the demographics of the Anglican church are such that they have it calculated out that by 2040 there will be 1 Anglican living left in Canada, in Saskatchewan, and everybody else will have been scattered to the winds because they have not been right worshiping and right glorifying. And they're allowing all kinds of craziness in belief and faith to move into their communities. So, and you're doing a good job today.
Father George, please. You see why I like hanging out with priests? They're so cool.
If my parishioners are not going to be angry at me for, I say, my journey to Orthodoxy, I'll tell it. I was born and raised in the Roman Catholic Church in Sudan. Since I was 8 years old, I knew I wanted to be a priest. It was very clear for me. So, although I was very much involved in sports, played basketball in high school and gymnastic and all of that, I traveled very extensively with the missionaries in Sudan to the villages. So I went to villages. That's how I spent my summer during my high school. I went to the Nuba Mountains. I spent times, I slept on the floor, I slept on a piece of wood, preaching the gospel, and that was my passion since I was 13, 14. Throughout my teenage years, I preached a sermon. I was 14 or 15 in Sudan in our cathedral, and it was something that I'm not going to tell you what it was, because I almost was killed the next day. But So anyhow, that passion, that love for Christ, to serve Christ, to be a priest was always in me throughout my teenage years. I knew what God wants me to be. And how I found out that when my brother, who was 8 years younger than me, was baptized, my mother, she asked Christ, that's what she told me, that please choose one of them to be a priest. And I don't know what that story is, but I thought maybe he made a mistake. He should have chosen my brother and not me. I went to Rome after high school. I was studying at the Gregory University. And during that time, I was thinking a lot about how can I make those Orthodox Catholic. And it was a big thing, really, just talking to my friends, in seminary. How can we make those Orthodox who are, left the church, left the true church, to make them Catholic, to come back again to the Catholic Church? And that was part of my passion for them, Then I went to Kenya. I did my novitiate, and I was like 1 or 2 weeks away from my novitiate, taking my vows of chastity, obedience, and poverty. And I wanted to live a life of poverty. Truly, I gave away a lot of things. And talk about silence, Abuna. In Kenya, in the novitiate is the period when you prepare to take your vows, before you take your vows. So I did 1 year in the mission in the West Pokot in Kenya. I was working with the West Pokot tribes, which many of them don't have any clothes on, by the way. You just go visit them at a motorcycle. I went to 30 schools every week to teach Christian education in the mountains. And then there was no electricity, there was no water. For a year, we were silent. We were not supposed to talk except 1 hour between 7 and 8 at night, and that when the power, they had a generator, was on. We were just in a very remote area. And I loved that kind of life. That's what I wanted to do, because I came to America, went back to Sudan again for that. But then they told me I haven't learned about obedience yet, so I need more time because I'm not obedient enough. And went to United States to join my family. My uncle, who was in the Melkite Church, the Rome Catholique, the Eastern Catholic Church, he said, you have to be a priest, you have to be a priest. We need priests in the Melkite Church and everything, but I don't know the rites because I knew the Western rite, the Latin rite, very well. That was my best. So we did Mass on the floor. We had floor with the priest in his shorts or whatever. We did it on a small thing. I was in the charismatic movement, so I know speaking in tongues and all of that. I've done all kinds of things. In the missions, we traveled a lot extensively to preach the gospel. It's all beautiful. I really had a beautiful, a very positive experience, I can say. And then I went to Holy Cross to continue my studies in theology as an Eastern Catholic now, but I didn't know much about it. So I said, I don't know how to do Vespers, I don't know how to do Matins, I don't know anything about liturgy, I don't know anything about the fathers of the Eastern Church, all of these things. I'm gonna just take a break, I'm gonna apply for the Latin, I'm gonna go back to the missionaries, it's called Comboni Fathers. I'm gonna go back to missions because my life is to be a missionary in Africa. And that's what I wanted to do, is to live in Africa. Thank God my father at that time, when he told me, no, apply for your green card, son, because you don't know. I said, no, I'm going to be a missionary in Africa. I'm going to die in Africa. I don't want United States. And I rejected it. I went back to Sudan. But anyhow, on my way back, I stopped in New Jersey to see my uncle. And then I went to buy a telephone, and there where I met Horia's mom. And Horia's mom, she said, why don't you try to call my home to try the telephone? And then she answered the telephone.
Don't make that voice.
No, I'm not going to make the voice. That was 31 years ago. Yeah. So anyhow, she said, why don't you make that? And so she said, we're having pizza tonight. Why don't you come over and visit with us? And then there was something in the pizza must have been.
Good pizza.
But really what I liked about Korea, because that time I didn't have any money, we were just having conversation. I said, where do you find a young lady today to accept anyone who doesn't have any money? Because because I didn't have anything. I came to America, $700. That was the only thing I had in my pocket. Okay? And she said, if you love somebody, you will sleep on the floor with him as long as you love him. Oh, here is a very strange young lady. You don't find it that often. Because I met another lady in Sudan, and she's like, how much money do you have in the bank? I said, nothing. Literally, and she said, here is the door, get out. We have no time for these things. I suffered a lot. I want somebody with money. There's nothing in my pocket. I studied for 5 years in seminary to be a Roman Catholic priest. And so anyhow, we met and decided to stay in New Jersey, and then we started going to the Eastern Catholic Church, the Melkite Church, and we were there for 10 years. We got married and everything. And thank God, you know, God has chosen her for my life, because, you know, you do have to involve God. I always say that. You have to ask God, show me who you want to be part of my life, who you have chosen for me. And literally, the choice was several times was her, you know, like I was thinking about it a lot. No, because there were like a couple of other young ladies that I liked. And every time that I thought about it, and I was talking about it, like, no, she is the one you have to marry. Like, but the other ones, you know, and this, and there was an Italian girl that I knew in Italy. You know. We were just friends, so I had very, very good friends.
Father Gregory, he's sleeping next to you tonight.
And then basically we start going to the Melkite Church. We were always very involved, so I start teaching. You know, I'm always teaching adult education. And then Kuri was in Sunday school, and we are always very involved. And I start to find out, like, okay, they say in the liturgy, our fathers, the Orthodox. There is a lot of words Orthodox in the Melkite, you know, services. And so when I asked the bishop, the one who married us became a bishop, actually 2 priests and a deacon. The 2 priests, both of them are metropolitans now, and they are bishops, you know. And we are very good friends. Well, one is in Syria, I don't know much about him, but the one in America, actually the Melkite bishop in America is the one who married us. Okay. And he didn't want to marry us because he thought we would never survive for a long time. He said, you're not going to be married for a long time. I know you're going to get divorced, because she was young, and I was still, you know, need maturity and everything. But then when I met him after 25 years, I said, you see, you thought we're not going to survive together. He said, oh, because you have a good wife with you. And it's true, you know, her being very mature and down to earth, and I have to say in 30 years, she never ever told me that she regretted being married to me, ever. I heard it from her, you know. So that was good. But anyhow, this is where... So, I bought a car with the $700, and I didn't have food to eat that night. And it's true. And that's how I started my life in the U.S. That's why I always say to American young people, don't say how I can do it, because I put myself through education. I finished my bachelor, my master, my doctorate, all working very hard, you know, with 2 children. And my children finished their universities and all of that. We put them through all of that. We worked very hard. You can do it. Nobody can say, I cannot do that, or this is too hard, or whatever. With God, everything is possible. So when he was telling me we are Orthodox, but we are in communion with Rome, that was very strange to me. So I said, I need to know more about this Orthodox Church. So I started to read more about the Orthodox Church and about what happened, the division that happened between Rome Catholic and Rome Orthodox, the Eastern Catholic and the Orthodox. So for 5 years I served, because that's my passion, is theology, history, those kind of things. So that's what I studied, you know. And so as I was searching and searching and searching, and read both sides and everything, I worked for the Melkite Church. I have an undergraduate in Christian education. That's why Sunday school is very strong, because that's what my degree is, in Sunday school, teaching. So I was training and traveling a lot around the country, training parish council people, because I have a lot of experience with that, and Sunday schools. So that's what I did for 2 years around the country. I came to a point where I was in Boston, And I started to become now more and more Orthodox in my thinking. And then I started talking about the 5 patriarchs. And the Pope of Rome, or the Bishop of Rome, is one of the patriarchs of the Western Church. And a woman stood up and she said to me, "Are you questioning the infallibility of the Pope?" And she put me on the spot. I was working for the diocese now, an employee of the diocese, a layperson, and I was preparing to be a deacon. And that was the time where I knew either I have to be an Orthodox or I have to be fully in the Catholic Church. And that was actually the time when I had to decide to quit my job and say, I think I am becoming more and more Orthodox. And I said to my wife, she was involved in all that, the kids were small, that's a long time, 22, 23 years ago. I think I want to be an Orthodox. That's where I want. Because the Melkite in 1724, before 1724 there was no Melkite Catholic. There was only Orthodox. So I wanted to go back home because I did a lot of research. My dissertation in seminary was on the union when the Melkite Church requested to be in full communion with the Orthodox Church, but they wanted to remain in communion with Pope of Rome. There was a request in 1994. So my dissertation wasn't that. My paper was all research about that. And I knew at that time that I want to go home. I want to go to the original. And nothing against the Melkite Church. I love them dearly. They did a lot of good to me. They did a lot. But I said, they have 1 foot here and 1 foot Roman Catholic because they do First Communion, they do sometimes rosaries, they do all of these kind of things. But then they are Orthodox. They tell you we are Orthodox. And so I said, I need to go home where I belong. That's where I feel more fulfilled. When I spoke to my wife, she said, I'll be very happy to be an Orthodox, because she's Coptic Orthodox originally. We'll go home. And so we decided one day, we just walked away and went to the Orthodox Church, where Father Elias Bitar, some of you know him maybe. He was there, and for 3 months he would not commune me, by the way, because we don't commune non-Orthodox. You see, this is how the practice is over there in our church. So for 3 months I was not communed. And on Orthodoxy Sunday, the day before, Orthodox Sunday, I went to Horton and I said, I want to take communion. I want to be an Orthodox. He said, okay, you come tomorrow. So on Orthodoxy Sunday, I was received into the church at Vespers at night. I was chrismated with my Horia, with the children, and we all became Orthodox. Never looked back, never regretted anything, never, anything. And I have no hard feeling against. The Roman Catholic gave me a lot of beautiful things that I know and I cherish. And the Melkite gave me a lot of beautiful things, and now I'm very proud to be an Orthodox. And thank God for that.
Thank you, Father.
Yeah, thank you. And then ordination came surprise to me, because I went to Bishop Antun to go to seminary to finish on Bishop Antun. I don't know how many of you know Bishop Antun. He came here, I think, around now. But 22 years ago or 21 years ago, he said, we have no money for you to send you to seminary, because they pay for the seminary. And I was married already, 2 small kids. But it came to surprise to me, because I was at St. Vladimir Seminary. During Holy Week, all of the seminarians follow Metropolitan Philip to the churches in New Jersey and New York. So we went to St. Mary in Brooklyn, New York, and then Metropolitan Philip, that was Holy Thursday at night. He calls me, as he got in his car. He said, why you're not ordained until now? And I said, I don't know, you're the bishop. Well, I couldn't talk to him like that. I mean, are you married? Yes, I have 2 small kids. Do we have your information? He said, yes. And this is a miracle in itself, because usually nobody's ordained on Pascha at night. So on Holy Friday, I got a phone call, get ready tomorrow, on Holy Pascha in the middle of the night, you're going to be ordained deacon. And I collapsed. I went to Father Thomas Hapko, who's my spiritual father, Thomas Hapko, for the last 18 years. I went out crying. I'm so scared to death. I said to him, I'm not worthy. And then, if you say Father Tom, he'd say, well, when he says like that, Father Tom, you say, there's something big coming. Well, George, he said, you have this attitude and you'll be a good priest. And that was the beginning of it.
Beautiful.
So we had
It's very interesting that you were all Orthodox, you're all married.
Yes.
Yeah, did you notice the common thread there?
Yes.
The woman.
A good woman,
Yes.
taught him obedience,
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
taught him
yeah.
to calm down, and taught me everything about life. Yeah? Makes a good woman. Any other question? That question took like an hour, that was great. Yeah, and then Grace.
I'm asking this question for someone else.
Oh, here we go. And this is not my question.
It's not my question. It would be obvious that it's not my question because I'm retired. I'm not working.
Okay.
So a person who has to work with, people who are, let's use this one, the biggest struggle. Let's say a person who's into voodoo that works close with them,
Mhm.
and all the other things that are in the world, homosexuality and other things. What's the proper response for,
Yeah.
let's use voodoo because that's the struggle.
Voodoo. Okay. Well, guess what? This is not my answer.
It's not my question.
The reason it's not my answer is because if these answers aren't the church's answers, then who cares? Right? So, in a nutshell, and I told the kids down at Project Mexico this too last year. They were asking me about the same-sex question, and I do believe that there's an overarching answer first, which is this. If I am not in love, kind of like what we're talking about here, if I am not in love with the people that I'm talking to, I need to be quiet first and pray for love to come into my heart. Because what am I going to do? Fight with somebody about voodoo? Fight with somebody about homosexuality? If I don't love them, you get it? I have to first and foremost be a child of Christ, a real child of the church, which means I can't afford to judge anybody. Can I judge what they're doing? Oh yeah, voodoo? Are you kidding me? It's demonic. And the church has very clear sayings about voodoo and about sexual behavior and all the rest of it. But if I'm going to practice getting involved in someone else's life, you know how serious that is? Right? I had better be, first of all, quiet and all the things. What I'm doing here is trying to set the groundwork, the Lenten framework of everything that we do, right? You can answer any question, voodoo or magic or any question, if you have the mind of Christ, if you have the mind of the church. That's what the fathers call it, the mind of the church. And if I have that, really have it, that means I'm in love with that person. The same way Christ was in love with his murderers. You get that? The ones who killed him, he loved them. Right then at that minute. So if someone's practicing voodoo, I don't hate them. The demons, a whole different story. I mean, we don't love the demons. Because what they're trying to do to one of us, like to drag them into hell, basically.